This video, I'm going to talk about death and not get too morbid with it, but just a light conversation with death, One distinction I made between death and, well, let's call it, I'll call it half death. And that would be people who are not able to talk or interact, or basically in kind of a vegetative state, or people who, all right, I'm gonna go another way to say what I'm saying, and that is, I've had friends who've lost their parents to death, and it's a very grievous thing, especially when it's unexpected. Actually, one of my friends just lost one of their parents, and it's devastating, especially when it's unexpected and it's not of natural causes. Arguably, and here's the hot take, this is only so valid because I actually haven't lost a parent yet. I've lost some friends, some really good friends actually. But one thing that's arguably more difficult than death and actually losing someone is losing, or for example, a grandparent who is in a serious decline with dementia. And it's like you've already lost them. But the crazy thing is that they're still physically alive. And that's almost more painful than death, is my hot take. Or a parent that's, horribly abusive, or something like that. Or a relationship that's horribly abusive and it finally ends and all that, but that person's still out there. It's more grievous than death, because death, at least there's closure. And you have these good memories intact with this person, and that's tied to your heart. But when the very fibers of your being and your heart is just torn to shreds from what this person did, it's to the relationship, to you, whether it was physical abuse or verbal abuse or spiritual abuse, you name it, or just betrayal, just full-on betrayal. It's very strange that, well, it doesn't get talked about much, but I would say arguably more difficult than death is kind of that half death. And because people generally have more compassion on someone who, well, I shouldn't compare saying they have more compassion, but from my experience, it's people are horrified by the stories of oh, this is what my parent did to me, or this is what this family member did to me, or what my girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever did to me. It's we know about these tragedies and stuff, but it can be even more devastating and toxic than what just an ordinary death, or an unordinary death where it's an unnatural one, but the reason it's also more devastating than an actual death is, with an actual death, people can very much empathize, and your bereavement and the grief and all that, and so you get a lot more support and empathy. Whereas if you just have a psychopath in your life, or something like that, sure, there's also people that reach out to help, but they mostly don't know how. It's mostly just this enigma of pain, and it's not as easy in general to empathize and help, unless it's an abusive situation and the person's like, I need help, like help me get out of this, I feel stuck, or something. But there's all these stages when someone goes through a death, like a close friend, and that's, you know, the grief, the sadness, and then there is like anger. There's anger, but it doesn't seem fair. And the anger of the not fairness is what I experience at least once a day, just about. But it's not so much with death. It's about the disposition and the control that's here, and the narrative that's going, that keeps it's like subverting the truth in people and opposing us against each other. Like, it's like getting us to believe this narrative that humans, you know, that we're like a disease on this planet. And it's like, well, if we are being controlled and dumbed down and made to forget and not have good vision, to have perspective, because perspective is everything, as far as your objective reality, then if that's taken away, then yeah, we're going to be stupid and be like a bunch of arcane creatures that are just like throwing weapons at each other and stuff. And I think there's a more fundamental problem and a more fundamental issue in the hearts and minds of humans. Because if we were healthy and actually at ease, I don't really think we would just be dominating each other and attacking each other as like history has displayed for centuries and more than that. And then on the flip side, people it's like we just have all this just sorrow over death, and I get it, it's a loss, and we don't know, all we know is this, and this is all it is. You get your one shot and then it's over, which I don't really believe that, because that's harder for me to believe than that there's other like existence outside of this one, and that this is just like a dream, or like we stepped into the imagination station and entered this matrix to learn all kinds of things. And maybe it was set up that way, and that was the guy's ploy to get us into this, and it is like presented to us as it's like, oh, this is a learning experience for your soul, for you, but it's actually a scam, because it feels like a scam. There's a lot of scamminess here. Attachments to things that are just not good taste, or at least we perceive it, something that's not good taste to be of good taste, or vice versa. I mean, that's more subjective, but what is the quality, like what is the quality of being? What is aesthetic? What is true beauty? And so there's definitely, I think, manipulation, but people hold so tenaciously to life. And I get it. This is a very extraordinary, exquisite, kind of one-time thing existence. So I kind of get it, but also it's so unfair here to people. It's so, like, it's masochistic how much we actually put up with and just accept it as, yep, that's just life, you know. It sucks, like, we're all gonna die, life is a bitch, you know, all that shit, and just accept it because it's reality. I say, like, rise up against whatever this realness is, which might sound insane, but how else? Like, the only thing we really have is, other than what we experience and take into our minds from this whole plane of existence, is our choice, what we want to create, the space we want to move through, how we want to present, how we want to interact and express ourselves. And we should be able to have more choices in that whole realm is what I'm saying. And the only way to do that is to start doing it. It might seem futile, but maybe that's also part of the... It's like maybe we can change the fundamental grid of existence. Though we don't know. And maybe it might seem futile, but to exercise your sentient, sovereign autonomy is paramount to being, to our existence. Like, we aren't just observers. I don't want to just be an observer. Maybe if I'm some spirit without a body, I can just observe things, but it's like, are you just going to read the textbook, or are you going to go out in the field and actually experience it? Because that's where the real learning happens. And while I'm in the field, I want to go farther than the conventional, accepted, consensus consciousness way. I'm a seeker, and I'm an explorer. I am not just the conventional anarchist, all these terms and tropes that have already been going on for so long. I'm not trying to drag that dead horse any further. I'm trying to create new things, and it's you gotta push back. It's like, if we have to put up with all these curses and stuff, or maybe that's a negative viewpoint to look at it, but it's like, come on, exploiting people, it's a curse. That shouldn't happen. That devalues people's existence, and we need to stand up to that thing. It's a very fundamental thing of our existence, that it's with all this, conformity or whatever, like, we have all of our consciousness focused on this other thing than a more fundamental issue that's at hand. And I know I got off from my original premise here, talking about death, but it's a pretty broad spectrum, as you know. And it's interesting, it's confounding, because other people's dynamic with their viewpoint on life and death is quite different from mine. Like, I have many times I'm like, let the curtains fall on this travesty. I just have had times, which I'm still here, because I value the people in my life and the community and my creative endeavors. Even though I feel like sometimes I'm kind of compromising my own integrity by allowing myself to still exist here. And, here's another hot take on death, if you made it this far. I had this thought a couple months ago, but that I both have the courage and the cowardice not to commit suicide. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the S word, that S word, on YouTube. Maybe I should have said something else. There's always more creative ways to express things and say things. I'm always in full support of that. But anyways, on that sentiment, like, I'm not obsessed with death. And I don't like the option of either, oh yeah, you can just end it, or you can just keep going. It's like, no, I don't want either of those options. I am creating a new option. And it's almost that stubbornness there on the fundamental dynamics of this reality that I stand my ground. And it's like, yeah, the powers that be here or whatever, what are they going to do to me? Are they going to beat me into submission until I finally learn their thing? No, I don't consent to that. I will not be beat into submission. That is antithetical completely to my way, to my will. And I believe my will to be good, and it's important to be aware. And with my naivety, I am often challenged by what is good, but it can always be recomposed in different chapters of our life. Oh, I'm already on 15 minutes. Look at that.